What is up, everybody? We are back. Today is Friday, April 28th. The first round of the NFL draft has passed, and it was pretty exciting, I'd say. We're going to go over kind of the implications of it, and Dynasty and redraft, and just how it changed kind of our outlook on the Dynasty rookie draft in the first round. As usual, joined by my brother, Brian. Brian, how's it going? Did you catch most of the first round?
Yeah, we watched it all the way up to the last couple of picks. But we were getting pretty good updates from you and Dad about what was happening, and Sleeper. So
not Sleepers. Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say not a lot of fantasy implications right there at the end, but yeah, overall it was good. We had a couple of friends over, and it was nice.
Sleepers, they update it quickly. A lot of the I kind of watch it through like PFF, and they get it pretty quickly, faster than the ESPN or whatever broadcast you watch on TV. It's just kind of funny that I think the first pick they announced it. It was like it felt like it was like 10 minutes before the actual pick came through on TV.
Yeah.
And then I noticed they started putting like Sleeper started putting like spoiler on it.
I definitely felt my phone going off, but I just didn't even bother looking at it. I was just talking about it with our buddy Moses about like what we thought was going to happen, and we got everything up and running just in time to like actually see it all go down. So it was good.
Yeah, it was. I feel like I don't want to say it was like a disappointment, but I feel like people hype up the draft every year of like all these crazy things are going to happen. I think we expected like a lot of, current veteran players to be moved, and they weren't. Hopkins, Cook, Tannehill. We heard all these names flying around of like these players could be on the move, and no one was traded. No veteran players were traded. So maybe it was a disappointment in that sense, but there was obviously some big implications in where people went. So we're going to kind of get right into it, starting with the quarterbacks. 3 went in the top 4. I think most people expected that, but there was some, is Houston going to take a quarterback? Are they going to trade out? Are they going to take Will Anderson, which of course they ended up doing by trading back up to number 3, which is kind of crazy. But 3 quarterbacks went in the top 4. It was Bryce Young, number 1 overall, which we've known for a while. CJ Stroud went number 2, and then to the Texans. And then Anthony Richardson went 4th overall to the Colts. So I guess my question to you is, we know Bijan's kind of still locked in as the number 1 pick in most people's, for single quarterback and super flex. And then, in our draft pick videos, we kind of said 2, 3, 4 should be the quarterbacks. My first question is, does that change anything? Do you still think 2, 3, 4 should be, for the most part, in a super flex league, the 3 quarterbacks that just went in the top 4?
I think it definitely like locked everything in. I know there was some kind of like, it wasn't a complete shocker to see 3 in the top 4, but there was still, like you kind of alluded to, there was some kind of, rumors about like, well, like Houston might not even take a quarterback, and like, like Will Levis might be the number 2 guy instead of Stroud or Richardson, which I'm not exactly sure where that came from. I know like there was like the betting line on Levis like jumped from like, I think it was like plus 2,000 down to like plus 200 or something. It was like a 10-fold like decrease in the odds. So that kind of got people paying attention to it and buying into it a little bit, because obviously Vegas doesn't like to just give away money, but it might have just been them trying to coax people into making that bet.
It was from a Reddit thread, actually,
really,
that changed the market. Yeah, it was basically a Reddit thread that went around, like someone saying, "Oh, I know, I'm friends with Will Levis, and he's telling everyone he's going number 2 overall or something," and that changed the market.
That's so crazy. That's like
Yeah,
Elon Musk with Dogecoin and stuff, where you
yeah,
can just make a tweet and like the markets just flip all around.
yeah. That's
Um,
insane. And then
but
shortly
yeah,
before the draft, um, like CJ Stroud jumped to like minus 1,600 to be taken second overall. So,
okay.
um, but yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was good though to see it kind of play out the way we thought it was going to. I know like I'd say like the biggest question mark in the top four was gonna be, or like it was gonna be like where does Anthony Richardson actually land?
Mhm.
And I'm really happy where he went. I was very interested in whatever quarterback was going to go to the Colts or whoever made it there, because there was a lot of rumors about what Arizona was going to do with the third overall pick and who was going to move up there to grab a quarterback possibly. So, yeah, it was good to see Richardson go to the Colts. I know last year we didn't see a whole lot out of them. Like we thought their line was going to be a lot better, the Colts, that is.
Mhm.
And that didn't, it turned out to be a pretty bad line, but offensive line, that is. So I don't know. Like it was kind of like, I was kind of putting a little bit of faith into them. And maybe you can speak a little bit more to this because you know a little bit more about the not as fantasy, or, kind of like the sort of like the backdoor fantasy implications of like,
Mhm.
the strength of like offensive lines and stuff like that. Like who was actually graded better and everything. But because I actually heard that the Texans, I guess, actually had a decent offensive line, which I think is going to help CJ Stroud quite a bit because it seemed like no one could even get close to him in the few college games that I watched. And so, he's definitely a guy, like you give him time and he'll make things happen. So,
Yeah, for sure. So I really like the Richardson going to the Colts. I think that's a great fit.
yeah,
Their new head coach this year, Shane Steichen. He was on the Eagles the last 2 years, from 2021, 2022. You saw what he kind of did with Jalen Hurts.
right.
Not to give him all the credit. Obviously, Hurts was a huge part of that, but he put Hurts in the best situation possible with the offense that he ran. He was also the Chargers offensive coordinator in 2020 when Herbert, took over out of nowhere because a team doctor stabbed Tyrod Taylor in the lung. And just on the fly, Herbert had a great rookie year. That's with Shane Steichen as the offensive coordinator. So a good track record for him, for sure. And I really, really like that landing spot for Richardson. Don't think he's going to start right away. They got Gardner Minshew there, but he's going to a team which their offensive line should go back a little bit to what it was before. They have Quentin Nelson, maybe the best guard in the NFL. They have a good center in Ryan Kelly. They have a couple good tackles. I think they had issues with the tackles last year of getting hurt. And, they have the 35th overall pick, which is the fourth pick in the second round. They can address the offensive line there. You have Michael Pittman, you have Jonathan Taylor, you have Alec Pierce. So I like that spot for him for sure. So I guess overall, my question to you is, so we still agree, I think 2, 3, 4 in Dynasty rookie Superflex drafts should be these quarterbacks. Does the order of it change for you? I'm still on Bryce Young as my favorite. I would still take him as my quarterback 1, but Richardson is probably my quarterback 2, and I'm not going to argue against anyone that wants to take him as the number 1 guy. So what about for you? Does it change the order? Do you think Richardson's your QB1 in Dynasty Superflex rookie drafts?
Yeah, I really like him there. I mean, he's kind of like the exciting pick, like Bryce Young. Like we definitely know like what he can do. I mean, maybe you got to remind me. I know they got Adam Thielen and at Carolina and Terrence Marshall. Who else do they have as receivers there?
DJ Shark.
Oh yeah, that's right. They got Shark.
Yeah, they have Tommy Tremble, a tight end. I mean, Miles Sanders at running back. They don't have a great receiving core, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that is kind of not just that, but just kind of like Richardson with the ceiling of like the rushing and everything. I honestly I think it's easy to make a case for Richardson as basically the number 2 pick overall in Dynasty Superflex drafts. We know the guy's like crazy athletic, and honestly, I've heard like good things about him as far as like his football intelligence and whatnot. Like there's certain things that he does that you can't necessarily teach very easily, and some of the stuff that he doesn't do as well is a little bit more coachable to a certain extent. The guy's obviously doesn't have like the same track record as far as experience. Like he only started 7 or 8 games in college, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was a few more than that, but he basically had 1 year starting. So
right,
college season's like 12 games. 12 games he started. So
yeah, so I think there's definitely the case where you can make for Richardson as the number 1 overall guy. Like you kind of mentioned, he might start right away, but I mean, I got to imagine the starts at least this season coming up, so you can at least.
Yep.
You still there?
Yeah, you cut out for a second, but no, I heard what you said, and definitely. I've kind of said that. I said this from since February that if all these guys live up to their potential, Anthony Richardson should be the 101 over Bijan, even because he's going to have a much more of an impact than Bijan's going to have. There's the risk though of, is he going to work out, because he is raw as a passer, I'd say, but obviously, the Colts think they can fix that and change Steichen, and so you got to kind of trust them as well. So I'm not going to argue with that of Richardson being the QB1. I still lean Bryce Young just because I think he can be that combination of a very good passer and still give you a solid rushing floor of 300-400 yards, kind of like a Mahomes does every year. Just because I don't even know how many run plays they call for Mahomes. I'd be surprised if it was more than 1 a game, but he still gets rushing yards because he creates with his legs. And Bryce Young's going to do the same thing. But
yeah, he makes good reads and kind of he takes that into his own hands. So for sure. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of look at Daniel Jones from last year as kind of Richardson should be able to do that, if he started a full season. And so, yeah, he's not necessarily I don't think you shouldn't be drafting him expecting Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson MVP or anything like that. But obviously the ceiling is there. So
yeah, for sure. And I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, honestly, I think that CJ Stroud, probably got hurt the most, not getting drafted first, I guess. I mean, I think if you're sitting at 4 and you get CJ Stroud, you definitely shouldn't be complaining. He's definitely the one that I liked the most going into this whole process when I first started, actually looking at this stuff. So,
yeah, Stroud to me has, and I said it very early on, I just felt like his fantasy career seems like it's going to finish as a Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill type of career of just a guy that you can count on to be a top 15, 16 guy. Maybe he sneaks into the top 12 during a year where he, for whatever reason. But I don't see that top end fantasy value or finish in him. But, there's obviously still huge value in having a guy in a Superflex league, like a Derek Carr as your QB2, a guy that you can count on getting you 17 points every week or something. So, but to me, he kind of firmly falls into my QB3 in this draft. And The only thing that would have changed that was if like Richardson fell pretty far. So
right, or if he went number 1 overall, like, or even if he would have went to Carolina and Young went to Houston, you would still want Bryce Young, you think?
Yeah, if everything was the same except Young and Stroud were switched to Young 1. Stroud 1, Young 2. I still would have had it Young, Richardson, Stroud.
Okay.
Just from my personal thoughts on the quarterback. Not to say he can't be a really good NFL quarterback. We've seen it with like Brady. Brady, until he got to the Buccaneers, was not really a great fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
Obviously, we remember the last couple of years where he was literally throwing the ball like 6, setting records every year throwing the ball. But previously, he was, he did have a couple of years, like he had like 2017, he was a top 3 quarterback. But 2018, it looks like outside the top 12, he was like 13th, 14th. So he would have those seasons of like, you can bank on him being in that top 15, but it was very not rare, but it wasn't common. He was finishing top 3, top 5 every year. That's because of his rushing floor, essentially. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But kind of moving on. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say if I know you kind of mentioned before we started if we wanted to touch on redraft. I think it's kind of like a quick and easy one. Like Richardson will get drafted, I think, like as kind of like a, maybe like he might get drafted the way like Justin Fields and Trey Lance were getting drafted the last few years. Like you can take him as your first quarterback, but you're definitely drafting Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins as your kind of like your contingency plan. Like you might have to take Richardson first. But yeah, like he'll definitely be drafted, I think. Like Young and Stroud, like maybe the opposite of that. Like maybe maybe they get drafted as a QB2 with just like potential for to outplay whoever you're getting later in the draft.
Yeah, redraft, the only guy I'd probably take is Richardson. And basically, like you said, late and as like your QB2 or having a backup. I think there's a solid chance that we don't even see Richardson play this year. I think Gardner Minshew is good enough, and I think their coaching staff is good enough, and I think they have talent. Like I don't think they're the 4th worst team in the NFL where they were drafting.
Right.
Overall, they have talent there, and I can see them being competitive, especially in that division. And so, like, I think if they're competitive and they have a playoff chance, like, I think there's just a chance we just don't see Richardson. Maybe he starts like a game at the end when they don't need it or something. So I'll take Richardson, though. I'll take a chance on him in redraft. The other guys, no, I'm not going to be too excited. We talked about it with they don't have great weapons around them, either Stroud or Bryce Young. So I'll probably wait a year for someone like Bryce Young. Now, in Dynasty single quarterback, Richardson's probably the only guy I'd be taking in the first round, just because one quarterback leagues, you're looking for that high potential guys, right?
Yeah.
So he's probably the only one I'd be taking. I don't know where in the first round necessarily, but I don't think I would take Young, or maybe Young at the end, but I'm not taking Stroud in the first round. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would say like maybe back end of the first round. Like I haven't really like thought about too much about one QB leagues for Dynasty necessarily, but I mean, I guess we'll get into it like right now, but like it's kind of like I don't know who you necessarily like absolutely take over him. I mean, there isn't even 12 guys that went off the board yet, I don't think. Like as far as like fantasy relevant guys, like we'll see more obviously today in rounds 2 and 3.
I think there are 10 fantasy position guys that went off the board, if I remember correctly. But let's get into the running backs. We had 2 go in the first round, which is not a complete shocker. I thought Jahmyr Gibbs had a chance to be a first rounder. Didn't think he would go where he went that high. But we'll start with Bijan. He goes to the Falcons. He gets top 10 draft capital, which we knew there was a chance for that. We weren't sure if someone was going to take a chance on it. As like a NFL team building perspective, I hate it. I think it's like a terrible move to take a running back 8th overall when you're a team like the Falcons, who I don't think are ready to compete. But for fantasy, Falcons are a pretty nice spot to get Bijan Robinson. Obviously, we kind of said it, wherever he goes doesn't change him being the 101 in our opinion. But how do you like that Falcons, the landing spot for Bijan Robinson?
Honestly, I really like it. There's a few other spots I wouldn't have minded seeing him go. Obviously, like, the Eagles, because, everyone's kind of said the Eagles, and like I do agree with it to a certain extent because we know their offense is going to be good again this year, but you do have Hurts there that's going to snake some of the goal line stuff. So I'm not exactly sure like that would have been the best spot. I was really worried about him going even further down and going to like Buffalo and kind of like muddying up that situation. Like he would still be like definitely like being drafted very high, like even in like redraft. But I don't know, just the Buffalo situation has just always kind of like been like a little worrisome. So it would have been awesome if he went to the Bengals or the Saints, obviously, like, or the Chiefs even, like if he would have made it that far.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, like I like him to the Falcons for fantasy because they obviously, I think they were 3rd in rush attempts last year. I think they had like over 400. It was like 450 rush attempts by running backs last year. And I think I heard that stat correctly. And they said running back specifically, so that wouldn't include Mariota.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So, yeah, obviously a team that prides itself on being run heavy and, they good little outlet for a second-year quarterback who's only seen a few games so far in Desmond Ridder. So, yeah, overall, I dig it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for fantasy, it's a great spot. You get that top 10 draft capital, so they're obviously going to use the hell out of him because you invested a lot in him. Like you said, it's a good spot for them. They run the ball a lot, and I expect him to kind of step right in and potentially be like, I think in redraft he could be like even a first, early second round guy. Because of his situation. RIP to all the Tyler Algier fantasy managers, dynasty managers. Perfect example of, I've kind of preached it.
The draft capital.
Yeah, just how fragile it can be. Like, I think Algier was a 5th round pick last year. He had a good year. Yeah, he was a 5th round pick. He had a good year, not amazing year. He got over 1,000 yards, but like, unless you're scoring 10 plus touchdowns or catching a lot as well, that doesn't really mean much. You do that math over 17 games. What's that? 50 yards a game, 60 yards a game. Like that's nothing, right? He had 3 touchdowns. 16 catches. People were high on him. I just think it's the perfect example of why you don't trade for guys like that pre-draft in the offseason. And also think about why you should sell these guys if they kind of outplay their value a little bit, and sell them for what you can, because this is what happens. James Robinson is another perfect example. The guy was like RB3 in 2020. And now he's already on his 3rd team, because he was an undrafted guy. So, it's, I don't know what you think about Algier in that situation, but I just think it's like a perfect lesson for new dynasty owners.
Yeah. So along that same vein, are you selling Pacheco and Damian Pierce?
Potentially
depending on
Pacheco.
depending on how people are viewing them. Like, let's say you could get. Are you selling them for like, let's say like a late second round pick or a mid second round pick? I know that's not like it's not like a very valuable pick, but I mean these guys were drafted kind of late.
Not Damian Pierce. I wouldn't sell him for that. He was like a 4th rounder, I want to say. So it's that's still solid capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty early as well. He's picked 107, so 32 times 3 is 96 plus a few comp picks. So he's a very early 4th round pick. So not Damian Pierce. Pacheco, I would have sold him for maybe an early 2nd rounder if someone wanted to give me that, or a wide receiver that I liked. Maybe not a mid to late 2nd rounder, but I would have sold him for like the 202 or something like that easily. Because we could just see him be nothing. Like what if the Chiefs trade for DeAndre Swift or something like that would be interesting, and I think that would hurt Pacheco a lot as well. So.
Yeah, it makes sense though. Like these teams aren't very invested in these guys. Like you brought up James Robinson as an undrafted free agent. I think everyone holds out hope for because Austin Eckler was that also, right? And so it's like, I mean, they didn't invest anything in him, and look what he turned into. But he's obviously the extreme exception and not the rule. And but yeah, it is just kind of interesting. To see how that plays out the more I pay attention to it over these years, where guys are drafted and how they're used and everything.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like get rid of these guys for nothing, but it's just keep that in the back of your mind. Mostly, it's like don't give up a lot if you're trying to trade for these guys pre-draft in the offseason. Like, just kind of be wary of that with running backs. So
yeah.
The next guy, though, Jahmyr Gibbs, pretty shocking. He went 12th overall to the Lions. Not only him going 12th, but also the team he's going to. Obviously, we have amazing draft capital with Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know. What did you think about the Lions getting Jahmyr Gibbs and for his dynasty future and fantasy future in general? Like, I think in our videos we were saying he should go in that 6, 7, 8 range. Does it push him up a little bit to you? Like, is it solidified like number 6? Or what are your overall thoughts on Pacheco? Gibbs.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, we talked about it a lot when we were doing our individual picks stuff, where it's like, I think you have to kind of respect what the NFL is telling you. I don't know if he would have went anywhere near that if the Lions didn't pick him at 12th overall. Like, I could have easily seen him falling out of the 1st round, or even to one of these teams like on the back end of the 1st round. So it definitely was like a shocking thing to like hear. But yeah, I mean, you kind of have to respect it. Like, we know the Lions, they have a great offensive line. Like, we saw what Swift did when he was healthy. Like, he was very much like a good playmaker. Just the dude, like, give him the ball and see what he does. Obviously, like, he's got some competition there as of right now with Swift and Montgomery, but I don't think we necessarily saw him as a dude who was going to carry the ball like 15 times anyways. Like, we were definitely thinking more like, given his size and like his college career, as more of a pass catcher. So honestly, overall, I really like it. I mean, Detroit needs receivers, especially with Jameson Williams. And I know they don't play similarly or anything, but it's basically, like they got rid of Hawkinson. Jameson Williams is suspended for 6 games. Like, he's got a chance to kind of kick down the door a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Swift. And honestly, like, now might be a good time to go, depending on how you feel about Swift overall. Like, it might be a decent time to go try and buy him in Dynasty, honestly, because whoever has him, it might be a little frustrated with the whole situation, and just they're willing to get rid of him for like a 2nd round pick. And I'd probably do that, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a mid to late second round pick. I don't know. I'm a little like my feeling towards. Obviously, I love the draft capital, and you got to respect that. And I like Gibbs. My whole feeling is like you had a player very similar to Gibbs already in Swift,
I
and
know.
you didn't know how to use him essentially, or you didn't want to use him. I don't know, but now, yeah, we got Gibbs here.
I just turned purple.
But yeah, so for Gibbs, respect the draft capital. I think he's kind of solidified himself. Like he probably should be going top 7 in Superflex drafts. Maybe top 6 if you like him more than these receivers that we're going to talk about soon. I think he kind of solidifies himself there. And I mean, maybe if someone wants to take him as like the 5th overall pick because they feel that strongly about him, like go for it, So
yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on like where these other quarterbacks go and like at what point, with Will Levis and Hendon Hooker. But I think it's kind of easy to make the case for Swift and JSN above those guys for sure. And I guess we'll talk about it when we get into the receivers. But I don't know if I necessarily agree with what you said, Mike, about like they didn't necessarily know how to use Swift. Like I think it was just more injuries, wasn't it? Like how many games he missed and everything. Like it seemed like he got quite a few targets, like his first year, and like he started off last year. Was last year his third year? It was his third year, right?
2022 was his third year, yeah.
Yeah. So, and he started off like decently, where it was like, I know it was kind of like predicated on like big plays a little bit, but I mean, it seemed like he was making them like at least one a game. So I don't know. I think that he's a good player if he could just stay on the field.
Yeah. I don't know. Like he only missed 3 games last year. It's not like he missed half the season and stuff. So it's just like I don't know. We'll see what they do with Gibbs, and obviously where they took him is amazing. So, but kind of getting into the receivers here, 4 of them went almost like I think it was like back to back. All 4 of them, 3 of them were back to back. The first receiver didn't go till 20th overall pick, which I think is a little surprising. It was Jackson Smith and Jigba to Seattle. So kind of quickly there, Brian, do you like that landing spot? Do you think JSN should still be the number 1 receiver taken in Dynasty rookie drafts? And do you think he still should be probably the first player taken after those 3 quarterbacks go?
Honestly, like I mean, I can easily see the case for Gibbs over him now. Like I think you can draft a little bit according to like what you need there. I do like the landing spot. We got Lockett aging out a little bit. I'm not really sure like with Metcalf there, and like I can't remember his exact numbers, but he had like crazy amounts of like red zone targets last year. Metcalf did, and so it's like I don't know what the upside for JSN in terms of that is like to get those touchdowns, but he's definitely going to be a nice target for them. Their tight end situation has never been like super great there, and Kenneth Walker doesn't really. I don't think they throw him the ball very much, so I think he could be a nice little safety valve for Geno Smith. So I like it.
Yeah, I like it as well because I think we're potentially seeing the last year of Tyler Lockett. He's going to be 31 very early on in the season. They can kind of get out of his contract after this year. They would have to pay him $24 million, which I don't think they're going to be doing, paying a 32-year-old receiver that much money. So I think they get out of that contract, and I think JSN is the number 2 receiver there As soon as next 2024, maybe even sooner. I think he's a perfect complement to DK Metcalf. Just how the two players play. A lot of people are talking like JSN to the Packers, and that'd be a perfect complement to Christian Watson. I mean, Christian Watson and DK Metcalf, I think, are very similar receivers. Metcalf only had 6 touchdowns last year. Lockett had 9.
I think it was there was some kind of funkiness when it came to that, like where Metcalf had. I don't know if you can easily look it up. You're a little bit more savvy when it comes to that stuff, but like the amount of like red zone targets that he had, even like within the 10, I thought like he had just crazy numbers, but he just wasn't coming down with them for whatever reason. So it was a little bit of you think like the regression is going to kind of go in the positive way for him to get a few more touchdowns.
I'll kind of look that up. Metcalf had 27 targets in the red zone, which was second to Justin Jefferson, but he only had 9 catches, which was 12th or 15th or something.
Right. I think the biggest question mark there is like who's going to be the quarterback the year after next. I get to see what Geno does this year. I know everyone was like, it was going to be a big like crapshoot last year, and obviously he turned out to be really good. But it's not like this is our first time seeing him, and it's like, oh, Geno Smith is actually good. It's like like what I'm saying is like I hope we can see it again to get a little bit more like to believe it. I feel like we were in like week 10 of last year before anyone was like, oh, I guess like Geno Smith is the real deal. Like we were kind of seeing it happen, and like everyone was still kind of questioning it. Like so pretty late in the season, where it's like, well, what does the guy have to do to prove that he's viable?
Yeah, here's a couple things I'll say. Is he was like the most accurate quarterback in the NFL last year, and I think it's going to repeat this year. And Geno Smith is younger than Russell Wilson. He's younger than Ryan Tannehill, or younger than Matthew Stafford, younger than Kirk Cousins. Like these are all. Like, yeah, he's 32. It's not like he's 40. He could still easily play 3, 4, 5 years, like
right
at this level. He doesn't have a lot of wear and tear, obviously. So I like this spot a lot. I think JSN still is my wide receiver 1. I'd even, I'm definitely taking him as the first guy after those quarterbacks. And I can even see if you want to make the case of taking him over like your QB3 in this draft, over like a CJ Stroud, I wouldn't even argue too much against that. I wouldn't do it, but I'm not going to argue against it. So, but we can get into the next receiver that was off the board, and that was Quentin Johnston going to the Chargers, 21st overall. Very interesting prospect. I kind of had him as my wide receiver 1 when I started the process, and then he kind of fell to maybe like my 2 or 3 guy, probably my 3rd guy. A lot of people are like very low on Quentin Johnston. I still think he has the highest potential to be the best receiver from this class and like a stud receiver, but he has a huge floor, or like a very low floor as well. But he lands with the Chargers and pairing him with Justin Herbert. So what did you think about that spot, and where do you have him now in your wide receiver rankings? And tell me what you think about Johnston going to the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, tying him to Justin Herbert for the next, 5 years, potentially. Like, I mean, who can argue with that? Like, I didn't really care about him as much coming into the process a little bit, like just from what I read and what I heard, and like what I saw from him. Like I know he had like kind of a dropping issue like in college, and from what I've heard, like I'm not as good at like vetting this stuff out. Like I know he's like a bigger guy. He's I got him at 6'3", 216, but I heard that he does not play to his size. Like he's not a big contested catch guy. Like he doesn't go up and get the ball kind of a thing. Like he just plays a little bit more like a smaller guy, which is not necessarily like a bad thing, but it's just not what you expect from a bigger guy necessarily. So I don't know. I think you can kind of pick your poison when it comes to the receivers in general. Like as far as like if you feel strongly about Quentin Johnston, like based on landing spot and like size and all that stuff, and he's going to take over for Mike Williams or or whatever however you want to like spin it. But I feel like him and the next two guys we're going to talk about, like you can kind of make similar cases for. So I mean, gotta love the landing spot for sure. And I hope we see good things. I'm actually wearing my Charger shirt today because I ran out of clean laundry. So
yeah, I don't know if that's an insult to the Chargers or what. But obviously, as a Chargers fan, I wanted them to get a weapon. I was maybe preferred Zay Flowers, but they took Johnston. I'll tell you this much: both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen have over $30 million cap hits next year.
Each.
Oh, wow. And they can get out of it, both of their contracts. So I think there's a very good chance that both, one or if not both, are gone. I like this. The combination of potential / being with Justin Herbert on a team is going to throw the hell out of the ball. Herbert's going to be most years good for 4,500 yards at least. It should improve on his touchdowns from last year. We saw him throw almost 40 his second year. I really, really like this. And to me, I'm in most Dynasty Superflex, I think I'm going to take him 6th. I'm going to take him over Gibbs. I'm going to take him over the other two receivers that we're talking about. Again, like I don't want to put too much into landing spot, but it's a combination of his potential versus the landing spot. So
yeah, and you got to figure he's going to be the wide receiver too when Williams or Allen inevitably miss a couple of games like during the season coming up. So I just feel like that's almost like a given at this point. Not to say anyone's injury. Not to use like the injury prone tag or anything, but it's like, I mean, those guys, we've seen the history of it. Like they're not going to go out for the whole season, knock on wood kind of a thing. They're probably not going to play all 17 games either. So
no. But I mean, let's say even if they do, and you're just kind of doing like quick math here. So you stay between Eckler, Williams, and Allen. If they all stay healthy, that's at least 3,000 yards, probably closer to like 3,300. The tight ends are going to get 400 or 500. They just kind of every year you're kind of guaranteed that with your tight ends. So if we do like a overestimation or take the average, we'll say 4,000 yards between all that. So if you're looking at Herbert throwing 4,700 yards, a lot of those other 700 yards could go to Quentin Johnston. And obviously the value's there of if one of those guys get hurt, touchdowns we can never predict. So I like it. I'm putting him in the 6th spot in this draft. And I think it's a little telling actually that they took him over another guy that we'll talk about. But first, we'll get into Zay Flowers going 22nd overall to the Baltimore Ravens. I really like Zay Flowers. Wanted him for the Chargers. They thought he would fit a little better. I like the speed. But he goes to Baltimore, and we haven't really seen a great wide receiver under the Lamar Jackson era produce in Baltimore. So what did you think about Flowers? What does it do for you in your Dynasty rookie drafts? Are you dropping him? Are you bumping him up? What do you think?
Yeah, don't like the landing spot as much. I mean, the thing that he has going for him, going to the Ravens, is not a lot of competition. In the receiver court. I mean, if you're buying into the whole like, oh, these guys have to play in the slot because they're little guys. Like if you're buying into that whole narrative, obviously he has a Mark Andrews problem when it comes to like more short area stuff. So yeah, I mean, I really did like him in general. Like I think you mentioned like him going to the Chargers, and you would have preferred that. That would have been awesome. But yeah, overall, like, I mean, I think we've seen good receivers, or at least good enough receivers, at Baltimore. Like Lamar's only gotten better as a passer in general. And I know that was like a big knock on him, like early on, like he doesn't know how to throw. And it's like, I don't actually think he was that bad overall. So I can see him being productive there. I did see a tweet this morning, and I never even tried to like verify it. Is Antonio Brown actually going to the Ravens?
I don't know. He tweeted that. And I don't know if it's true or not.
Oh, so if he did, then I don't believe it until I hear anything else. Like I said, I don't even know what the source was. It just popped up on my phone, and I was like, really? I know they got OBJ and Rashad Bateman and stuff, but I don't think those guys are necessarily a threat to Zay Flowers. So overall, like, I'm fine with it. I like what you said about Johnston or Johnston. I forgot the T.
Yeah, Johnston
over Zay Flowers, but I feel like with these two guys and the next one we're going to talk about, you can make a case for any of them and just decide on who you like and whatever narrative you want to believe and get a little conviction.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say there. Marquise Brown in 2021 did have a good year with Baltimore. He had 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns, 91 catches. So that's obviously a fantasy relevant year. So Zay Flowers is kind of a clone of Marquise Brown a bit in terms of their size, like 5'9", 180 is what Marquise Brown is, and I'm pretty sure Flowers is like right around that. Brown ran like a 4.3, 340. Zay Flowers ran a low 4.4, so they're both very fast. So he could be like that, new Marquise Brown, and so we could see that working. Like you said, not a lot of competition. Mark Andrews is still the alpha there, but you got to throw your receivers as well. And I still like Zay Flowers, and I'm still going to treat him like a first round receiver, just like I was with like Jahan Dotson last year is a good example of like people were just kind of fading him a bit because he was small. He went to Washington, and he's a first round receiver. Not that he put up these crazy numbers when he played; he looked good, but you still got to respect that it's a first round receiver. And I'm not going to be taking probably any receiver in the second round that's taken over Zay Flowers. I'm probably not even going to be taking the tight end that we're going to talk about later over Zay Flowers. So I'm not going to argue again. If anyone wants to have him as their wide receiver too, that's fine. I think, like you said, with Johnston, Addison, Flowers, it's kind of pick your preference type of thing. For me, it's JSN and then Johnston, and then we'll talk about the next guy. But anything else you want to mention about Zay Flowers?
Well, I guess everyone knows, obviously, but I mean, he's attached to Lamar Jackson for the next several years also, which I don't think is the worst thing. I know, like, meaning that, like, Lamar finally signed his contract and everything, so you don't necessarily have to worry about that. So who his quarterback's going to be, and which I think is something to say. There's something to say about that. Like, I mean, the 3 guys we've talked about so far, like, I'd say, we definitely know who's going to be throwing to Johnston. But it's like JSN, like, I mean, if Geno Smith has a bad year this year, it's like they might move on from him. And I think we don't know what's going to happen with this next guy either, quarterback wise. Like, I'm just thinking, dynasty wise, like 2-3 years from now, not necessarily this season coming up. But so, I mean, there's something to be said about knowing who the quarterback's going to be for your receivers. So,
yep, for sure. But yeah, the last guy, he did go. It was 4 in a row, by the way. But it's Jordan Addison went to the Vikings, which is basically where like everyone was mocking him to, and that's where he landed. And people love that spot for him. He's obviously the number 2 there, pretty clearly. But that's not a bad thing. He could be like a Devontae Smith type of, Devontae Smith had a solid year in 2021, but but he was like the only guy. And then they bring in AJ Brown, and then Devontae Smith has a better year, which seems like right counterintuitive, or it's just like that doesn't make sense. But sometimes guys are just like they need to be the number two, and play like the number two, and they'll actually produce more than if they were the number one. And I think that's kind of the case with Addison a bit. So I like this spot for Addison as well. I mean, I like the spot. I like the player. I do think it's slightly telling. So the wide receiver coach for the Chargers was the wide receiver coach at Pitt, when Addison was at the University of Pittsburgh. And so that either means like the wide receiver coach sucks for the Chargers and doesn't know what he's looking at, or there's some concerns with Addison because you think you would take Addison if you thought you coached him in college. So, but yeah, I think it's a great spot for him. And again, like Johnston, Flowers, Addison, take your preference there. Two of them have really good landing spots. So I really like Addison to the Vikings. What did you think about Addison to the Vikings?
Yeah, like I thought it was really good. Like you kind of alluded to, like he's going to be the number two there. Like no one's taken Justin Jefferson's role, but that could turn out to be a really good thing. Jefferson's going to pull some double coverage. Obviously you have Hawkinson there. So I'm sure he gets hurt a little bit by the Addison addition, but they did get rid of Adam Thielen in this past off season, so there's definitely room for him. And yeah, I could definitely see him flourish. Just to touch on the quarterback thing again, it's like we don't know what's going to happen with Kirk Cousins after this year, and not that he necessarily needs Kirk Cousins to be good, but it's just that little bit of inconsistency, because I mean there's no way anyone's like fading Justin Jefferson at all just because we don't know who his quarterback's going to be. Not to say Addison's in that category, but it's not everything. It's just something to consider. Yeah, I do like the landing spot for sure. I think he has like the clearest path to be the best rookie, I think, out of the four receivers that we just talked about, just because of where he went and like the void that he's filling.
You mean for this year?
Or for this year, yeah, specifically.
Okay. So yeah, I wanted to touch on that. So real quick, JSN, Johnston, Flowers, Addison, give me your how you rank those four guys, the four receivers that went in the first round. Real quick, I am JSN, Johnston, Addison, Flowers for my Dynasty rookie drafts. How are you going to rank those four?
Yeah, I think I would go in the same order. Again, like I think just Johnston, like not just like his landing spot and stuff, but being tied to Justin Herbert, and like you kind of mentioned, I didn't know that about the salary cap hits. Like I know the two guys in LA were getting a little bit older, and I know they both got contracts semi recently over the last couple of years. So yeah, I think that's a little eye opening. So yeah, I agree with JSN, Johnston, Addison, and then Flowers. But again, yeah, those last two especially, like they could easily be flipped.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and then real quick for redraft, let's touch on redraft real quick. Which of those four receivers do you think would you take first in a redraft? Like I think you kind of said it already, but
yeah, I think I would go for Addison, just based purely on like the void that he's filling and everything, and I think he has the clearest path forward to be relevant, but still like not very excited about him. Like he's definitely like getting into like I haven't really thought about the rounds too much, but I'm definitely taking him as like a wide receiver, like 4 or even 5 maybe. Just take a flyer on the young guy in a good spot.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I mean, Addison has the clear path there of putting up numbers, so I definitely agree with that. Good. So then we have the one tight end that went, Dalton Kincaid. Love where he went. He went to Buffalo. They traded up for him. Um, Buffalo needs, I've been saying it all along, I think Buffalo's going to take a weapon in the first round. They were talking about Josh Downs there for a while. They move up, they get Kincaid. I think Kincaid could have gone top 15, top 20. I like them that much. I love this pick for Buffalo. I love it for Kincaid. He could be the number 2 option alongside Stephon Diggs, because who else do they have, Gabe Davis, McKenzie, I don't even know if he's still there.
He's not. McKenzie got traded or cut, or he's in like Tennessee now or something, or
okay,
yeah, I don't know. He went somewhere else.
Yeah, so I like Kincaid a lot. He's on the Colts. I like Kincaid a lot, and he was kind of my in terms of fantasy tight ends, probably my number 1. I like Mayer maybe overall more as like for my NFL team, but yeah, I like Kincaid a lot there. Brian, where would you put him? Talk about Kincaid in your opinion, and then where would you put him? Are you taking him over any of the receivers, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
No, I'm not.
Especially non-tight end preview, obviously.
Yeah. I'm not taking him over any of those receivers we just talked about. Not taking him over, anybody that we just talked about. I mean, he's we still got Dawson Knox there. Like, I think he's much more interesting in best ball than anything. I'm not using a first round pick on him. I think, yeah, like you can make a case for him like in the second round. But everyone knows like rookie tight ends like don't do anything. You can't count on them for anything. So I might be mixing him up with someone, but is he the guy that is not very good at blocking? And so like everyone's like, oh, well, he's just like whoever takes him, if they, especially like, he's got the first round capital now, like he's automatically, they're going to be using him as a receiver basically is kind of like the narrative.
Yeah.
Is he the right one that I'm thinking of?
Yeah. I basically describe him as like a bulked up receiver more than like a tight end. Yeah, he's
right.
Like 240, which is a little light for a tight end. And he's not the greatest blocker. So yeah, he's going to be kind of like a Gesicki, used like a Gesicki, like basically out wide 70% or more of his snaps, in my opinion. So, which is good for fantasy.
Yeah, and you're attaching yourself to Josh Allen, not to just to continue on the whole attaching yourselves to good quarterbacks kind of a thing. Like you can't argue with that. We've seen tight ends be productive in Buffalo, so I don't hate it, but I'm just like I would have preferred for him to go to the Cowboys, but Buffalo jumped in front of them probably for that reason.
Yeah, I think that's why they did it, but I like it. I mean, I like it. I like the Cowboys too. I don't know if I say like I like the Cowboys more than Buffalo for sure. It's kind of like I like both, and I would have been happy with both. So I'm a huge fan of it, and I just think Buffalo sees the Chiefs dominating with Travis Kelce, and they're like, we need one of those, and they went out and got it. Yeah, for sure. And they went out and got it. This guy has legitimate speed at the tight end position. And again, you want to see your tight end be the first or second option on the team. I see that path. I'm fine with taking I'm not taking him over any of the receivers, but I'm fine with taking him. So let's see. If we got Bijan, the 3 quarterbacks is 4, Gibbs 5, not 5th overall, but 5 in the first round. Yeah, 4 receivers, that's 9. We'll see. We're going to talk about Levis and Hooker next, but I could see taking him, 11th, 12th, and maybe, right around there, like the end of the first round, if you really need a tight end, and because I love the spot so much, so I'm okay with it for sure. Especially if you're there and like, oh, I don't have another pick until late second round type of thing. So
you could definitely take a shot on him, but I feel like there's some running back's gonna get drafted today, and we're gonna love the spot and be like, oh, that guy over Kincaid kind of a thing. Like there's gonna be kind of it's gonna be like what we were just talking about with the receivers, where you just kind of have to make a choice and live with it. Hope you make the right one.
Yeah, which is kind of why I said 11th, 12th. I left the room for like a running back getting taken in the second round. And then we have, Levis and Hooker. And originally in our pick videos, we were kind of saying if these guys go in the first round, they should go 6th, 7th, 8th in that range. That changes for me now. Levis falling to the second round. Hooker, we kind of knew there was a solid chance he does fall into the second round, and we'll see if he even goes in the second round. I still really like Hooker, and I still think if both these guys go in the second round, I'm probably still taking them, 9th or 10th in my Superflex drafts. And if you want to make a case for even like 8th still, I'm fine with that. What do you think about these guys falling and where, let's say they go in the second round to a pretty good spot, Detroit Lions, Seahawks, Raiders, Raiders, the Titans. Titans are there. The Falcons even. Washington. There's still a lot of good teams in the first half of the second round. If they go to one of those teams, where would you take them, Superflex?
Yeah, I think that after the receivers, I would say, well, I mean, I guess it kind of depends. Like if the receiver that you really like, out of those three after JSN goes, like if you only really liked that one guy and he gets taken before you, like you could make the case, because like we keep harping on, like in Superflex, like quarterbacks are king. So obviously if you have a later pick and you actually earned that later pick, then you might not be super needy, but you need to be constantly sort of replenishing these sort of guys. So yeah, I don't mind it in that later first round. But I guess we'll have to kind of see where these guys end up. Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they fell past the second round. For sure with Levis and even Hooker, just like, take your chance now. You're not investing a top 5, top 10 pick on them. Take your chance if you're Atlanta or Washington or, not Carolina, but Seattle, or even the Rams might be a sneaky place for one of these guys. So
yeah,
that'd be very interesting. They pick 36. They're the 4th pick of the second round. So be very interesting.
Just give it an hour. They'll trade it away for something.
Yeah, probably. They have so many needs, though. I'm just looking at like the Lions needs wide receiver, tight end, defensive interior. The Rams running back, tackle, guard, center, defensive interior, edge defender, linebacker, cornerback, safety, and I would even say receiver and quarterback. So like literally every position.
Okay.
Yeah, very interesting.
What about this? What if they fall? I'm trying to see. What are the Niners' first pick? Is their first pick really 99?
I think so, yeah.
At the end of the third round. So let's say that Levis or Hooker fall that far, but they go to, basically like the free spot for quarterback where it's like, every quarterback that goes to the Niners seems to be all right because they don't really have to do a whole lot because of the team. So what do you think about like where are they going at that point if they fall all the way to the end of the third round to the Niners?
Probably in the second round.
Yeah.
Still in the second round. I don't know where in the second round exactly, but I mean, if you told me the Niners traded Lance and, they draft one of those guys, I'd feel a little better, but I'd still, take a chance in the second round because the hit rate is so low anyways. So, like I'm sure like a Jalen Hurts, I wonder where he would have gone in Dynasty rookie drafts, third round probably, or and look at what that turns out. So take a chance with these late second, third round picks. Take a quarterback that has a solid draft capital and a good spot, and who knows what they can turn into, right? So,
you just never know.
Never know. But you going to be able to follow day 2, Brian, NFL draft?
I think so. We don't have baseball or anything today, so we should be good. I was just trying to pull up. I'm just looking up. I'm trying to. I have like my little spreadsheet of all like a few like mock drafts and stuff. So I see Jalen Hurts in one Superflex mock draft from 2020, going right after Jordan Love, right at the end of round 2. So
yeah. I mean, I'm taking a chance on like even Jordan Love. Like it would be interesting to see like who went around them, and it's like those guys probably didn't turn into much, like so. I
Denzel Mann, LaVisca Chenault, Brian Edwards. Those are the guys like right around him.
All three of them, nothing, right? So it's like, I take your chances with these quarterbacks and tight ends. Like take your chances. Who knows what they can turn into? But I mean, day 2 obviously is going to be even more telling. A lot of running backs. I think there's going to be a run on receivers. A couple running backs will go. We'll see even tight ends for sure. We'll see the quarterbacks go. Second and third round. We're probably going to be back actually after the second round or after the day 2. We'll probably be back talking about who went where and the implications of it. So with that, we're going to finish up. We're going to, as always, like the video and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you guys tonight.